God did not give every one of us the same finishing line. Yes.
Yeah.
We don't all have the same finishing line. So 2 evangelists in the same church does not mean that every one of them must preach in Tokyo. We had a discipleship gap in the church where pastors literally abandoned the work of discipleship and started using the word mentoring. As a disciple, you are meant to grow somebody to become like Christ.
Yeah.
However, we shift that to mentoring. Become like me.
Should young persons be ordained as pastors?
Everything was like attention to pastor, such that even when you want to give testimony, it has to be about what pastor said or what pastor did not say about that for you to be able to have access to the pulpit. No, these are the issues.
You may have all the fire, all the revelation. It's nothing compared to experience. You may have read it in the book. Yeah. Elijah commanded fire until you see fire. Yeah, you can tell other people's story, but there's what experience does for you.
Yeah.
And many times, one of the first ways to gain the experience is to sit with somebody whose experience is close to you.
Yeah. Yes.
Hello, welcome to Quest to Know podcast, a segment of podcast that we question everything about the church, African community, and family. And I am your host, Ubong Johnny. It's always good to have us on this particular podcast. Please, if you've not subscribed to any of our social media handle, it will be a good time to go to YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, and Facebook and search Quest to Know podcast and follow us to get more inspiring and thought-provoking videos. All right, in today's episode, I have great men. I'm so honored. I'm super excited to host these great men in today's podcast. I'm talking about Dr. Inebong Afarakan and Pastor Paul Nte. It's so good to have you here. I'm just happy. I'm overwhelmed with joy.
Thank you.
All right. So about like Pastor Dr. Inebong, he may not have said that.
Now you got it right.
But I need to say it. All right. Pastor Fakan is an engineer, an electrical engineer. Is a church administrator advocate. So if there's any message Pastor Fakan is passionate about, he likes to see the church being ordered and decent. He likes to see organizations, even outside the church, being ordered and decent. And he's married to one female wife, as someone would say.
Yeah.
One female wife.
Notably female.
And he's blessed with amazing kids. Thank you for joining us, sir.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Sir, do you not say about yourself? Or you should
No, you've said it all now. What else am I going to say?
Right. Okay. Also, we have Pastor Paul Nte. When I joined God's House of Refuge newly, young guys were talking about Pastor Paul Nte. And of course, he's here for us to drink from his well of wisdom today. Pastor Paul Nte is a seasoned leadership coach. He's a convener of Kingdom Influence Conference and is a co-founder of Scarlet Thread Media. He's very passionate about empowering and inspiring young minds and to do great things in the kingdom of God and also in the secular world. Thank you very much for honoring our invitation.
Thank you very much
We are grateful.
for having me.
We are grateful. All right, so today's topic, we want to talk about youthful zeal or inexperienced hands, the young minister's dilemma. Youthful zeal or inexperienced hands, the dilemma that comes with should young Christians be ordained as ministers, or is it a risk ordaining them? Are we sure they will be able to do what they are supposed to do? Or they will mess up the work? We can't trust young men with the pastoring call at 18, 20, 25. They are too young to be pastors. So this is what we want to talk about today. And we trust that you will learn so much today and you have what to take home. All right, straight to the point. Pastor Fakan, sir, please. The question direct, should young persons be ordained as pastors? If yes, why? Or if no, why too?
Okay, thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
The answer to that question is a capital yes. Yes, young persons should be ordained as pastors. Let's even start from Jesus, the one that died. At what time did he start ministry? The first time he appeared, he was 12. And then the next time we heard about him, he was 30. He did all the work he did in 3.5 years. He died and then he left the scene. Now, there's something very, very important with the people that Jesus recruited. The Bible makes, if we study the scriptures very well, the only person that was mentioned as someone that was married was Peter, because we heard about his mother-in-law. Okay. And then Jesus had a group of young people. I still believe that James and John were teenagers. Yes. You know why? Because one day he took the mother to carry the two of them to meet Jesus and say, please, when you get to the kingdom, make my son to sit on your left hand, on your right hand. So it looked as if those boys were still very, very young boys. Remember, they were also working with the fathers at the time that Jesus Christ called them. Yeah. So if you look through scriptures, is it David? I can mention many names. David became a king at 17, or was called, was ordained, anointed as a king at 17. So we've seen all through scriptures that a lot of things happen when people were very young. Yes. So it's in my today's world that it now looks as if they have to get to a particular point, before they can be ordained. So I totally agree. We should have young ministers. In fact, there's a dearth of very young ministers in our today's world, and it's not really good. Look at the people that we call our fathers of faith, and then maybe if we have another tier of that level, then another one. They are all possibly from 45, 50, 60, 70s, 80s, still dominating the scene. We are the 18s and the 19s and the 20s. We can't find them on the pulpit right now doing great things. So young ministers should be ordained. That's just my...
Wow, amazing. Thank you very much, sir. Okay. Pastor Nte, what's your take on this?
Okay, personally, I feel strongly it's a yes.
Okay.
It's a yes. Now, if I'm to allude to what Pastor Nyobong said, Jesus started very early. In fact, I dare say it's part of the reasons why the rabbis will fight him. So I'm looking at a 30-year-old young man in my generation pastoring, and he's pulling crowds, and what he's saying is countering what GOs, just look at our age, and he's countering what GOs of, with churches covering well over, 4 states, 5 states, and he's countering all of that. I mean, Jesus will host conventions, just a meeting, walk inside, and then you hear people from the north of Israel, the south of Israel, they are there. They are there, and then they listen to him talk. So you ask, at what time did he begin to do this? It's good to start early to do these things. We have ministers who are old and are now trying to live their life through young people because they did not start out these visions early. The earlier you start, the earlier you can achieve what God has put inside of you. If it is God, it is big.
Yeah.
And if it is big, you need to start early. You need to start early. So for me, it's a huge yes.
Yeah, so when you say that, someone said it takes time to know God. It takes time to know God. That means it's important we start early. So when you say early, from what age to what age? Before we started this convention, you mentioned that a form of young ministers where you just say young. You said when I mean young, I mean young. Yes. From what age to what age can we call a person is a young minister?
Is he ministering? Yes. And what does young mean? Young actually means young. I'm not trying to be like a certain nation's political leaders where somebody at age 40 is still youth leader. We are not young. I'm not trying to be like them, right? Okay. So when we say young, let's picture Samuel. When did Samuel hear the call of God? He was young, staying in his mentor's house or in his pastor's house as at the time. Yeah. And he hears the voice of God and hear the things God tells Samuel at that age.
Seriously.
God would have said, Samuel, you are so young. Let me look for someone else who is closer to Eli's kedar.
Sorry.
But God said, no, Samuel is not too young. This guy can roll. And listen to Samuel's story. When you hear Samuel's word, they said Samuel was a prophet whose word God did not allow fall to the ground. The guy led Israel, and all through his days, the Philistines could not enter Israel. My God. All through his days. So young means young. If a person knows God by 12, great, let him start. Jesus engaged doctors of the law at age 12. So it means for me, at that level, it means one, you have good depth of understanding. Because there are certain persons you cannot give certain things to do because their faculties are not developed. So I believe time will give us room to address some of those things.
Yeah.
But you see, as long as the faculties are developed to receive certain level of understanding, and they are well conscious and aware of the actions they are taking, it's okay. They can make that decision.
Wow. Pastor Farkan,
You
want to add to that?
Yes. Okay, because I think it was in 2020.
Okay.
2020 that my pastor, Pastor Ezekiel, gave me the opportunity to take a teaching on School of Ministry. I was talking church administration.
Okay.
And I looked at everyone in that hall and I asked them, how many of you know very well, the way you know your name, that one day in this life, you are going to be standing on this pulpit and people are going to be coming to church to listen to you on a Sunday morning. That you are called into ministry. The point that people know that when they come to church on a Sunday morning, you will be the one that is going to be preaching. And then almost everybody raised up their hand. And I told them, if you are 25 and your hand is raised, you are not doing that now, you are late.
Very late.
I said,
very
that's
late.
what I said. You are late.
25.
The amazing thing is this. In that place, only 2 people since that time till today are on the pulpit. That is how serious this thing is. So this 5 years later, and none of those people, in fact, the 2 people that are on the pulpit right now were already on the pulpit as at that time. They came into that meeting, they were already preaching pastors. So there's really none of the people that was there that raised up their hand that is doing what they said they were going to do. And a lot of it, because I've gotten to talk to a lot of them one-on-one, and it's traceable to some systemic failure. That is not allowing them to go into that. But 5 years ago, they knew very well
they'll be doing this.
That is what they are going to be doing. I don't know how old they are today because it didn't even look like any of them was 25 as at that time. When I said, if you are 25 and you're not doing this, you are late. So young
means young.
Honestly, someone needs to go to the university when we were on campus. And see what the guys at 16, 17, 18 are doing on campus for God. There's really no reason if anyone can do all of that in the campus, then comes out to the organized church and then sits down to the heading choir or heading ushering team. No. For the ones that know that they are called into ministry. Unless again, we are trying to define the concept of ministry. Because sometimes because of what is heard on the pulpit, a lot of persons admire the speaking ministry. I want to be up on the pulpit. While there are a whole lot of persons whose ministry may not be on the pulpit. So because many times when we get to mix all of that together, we get to say, okay, start late. But there are people who understand mine is not that pulpit kind of stuff. I can do mine whether I have a pulpit in church or not. And you notice those kind of persons with their own ministry, they run fast. Because they're not waiting for an approval of a pulpit.
Or a system.
Or of a system to run. So you notice those kind of persons. I dare say that's why Jesus started early. He didn't have to wait for a synagogue. He didn't have to wait for a synagogue. He didn't need their permission.
So are we talking about that we do not really have to wait? Because if we must take the assignment, then I think I asked Pastor Afaka this question once when I went to his house. Because he said, mantle must be passed. The baton must be passed. So
not dragged.
Not collected like Elijah.
So how do we then do the ministry on the streets or and we do not have a pulpit or as it may, because Pastor mentioned that people have to come on a Sunday morning. Pastor said, that
I
a pastor
he was defining a specific ministry.
He was defining a particular ministry. That one. You are going to be on the pulpit and people are coming to listen to you on a Sunday morning. That was that definition.
Very clear. Very clear.
Pastor Falca, let me come to you. So in your book, the church administration, you gave a brief of how you started from dad's parlor to how you navigated to campus and the rest. Can you give us a brief, your experience and how it has affected your life now?
Okay, so well, as a child, you get exposed to a lot of things.
Yeah.
So whatever, the Bible says, whatever your hands find it to do, you do it. So I had this pastor that I guess possibly he saw, I don't know whether he was seeing call of God or whatever, or whether he was just seeing a small boy that was brilliant. Either way, but I became his Bible reader. So anytime he wanted to preach, he would call me to read the Bible for him, maybe a very long passage.
Wow.
And then he started taking me out when he's going on preaching engagements. And I was a child, maybe 8 or 9. I'm telling you.
Really?
So
early.
I'll be reading the Bible for him. And for me, that was it. And we continued. We moved from that church, moved to another church, the one that now started in my father's parlor.
Okay.
And of course, when the church is starting in your house, you do everything. So there was nothing we didn't do. The only thing I did not do was ushering. I've not still done ushering.
I should call your pastor. Let's complete this cycle.
So we did evangelism. I sang. I played the keyboard. I played drums. There was nothing I didn't do as a church, as a church boy. But after a while, when I started sensing that, we were growing, of course, I could preach, I could go for evangelisms, we did outreaches. But I now noticed that this pulpit preaching wasn't really my core. Yeah, it could be, but not my core. And I started developing, like this thing for systems. I started talking about it. No, things should be orderly, things like this. I started looking for this kind of stuff in scriptures.
Yeah.
So even when I got on campus and everything about me was just trying to organize things. And I saw how just by effectively organizing the church could also increase numbers.
Yeah.
So for me, whenever anything that comes with preaching comes, there's someone that can handle that. So for then if it's a teaching, because I'm also very graced in the teaching ministry, so I could handle teachings. But if someone wants to prophesy, I say, hey, brother, this one is for you. I don't get involved in something that is not my core. And I still remember how we grew a fellowship in my final year from 200 to 500. As in just by doing simple things. We were not doing much, but just
So like how old were you then, sir?
My final year was 23.
So imagine he has grown a church from 200
to 500.
to 500.
I joined that fellowship at age 19.
Wow.
Yes, I joined that fellowship at age 19. At 20, I was secretary in the fellowship. And then 21, I was vice president. And then my final year, I was in charge, as in there was this body of elders that everything was just resting on my shoulders. And that's because majorly a bulk of my ministry work was in that final year where I had the opportunity to determine or decide whatever was happening in the fellowship then.
Wow.
And we grew to a point where we said, this place is too small for us. We need to leave. The auditorium we were as at then was almost like the largest auditorium.
Really interesting.
And then the school was now building up this new auditorium. We started eyeing it right at foundation level. And I said, that was in my 3rd year. I said, if this building gets to a point where I'm still in this campus, we are going to take this place. My last message on that in the fellowship was in that hall. I dedicated that hall for our fellowship. They are still using it till today.
Wow.
Yes, that was after I graduated. I waited, and then we got to that place. We had our first fellowship where I did my formal handing over, and I ministered there. And even on that day, we were almost like 700 people because we had to invite many people. The fellowship had grown from 200 to 500. We couldn't stay in the place we were before.
Wow.
And I wasn't doing what I'm seeing pastors doing today. The pastoral thing. It was just organization. And we could still grow. So anything that I needed a pastor to do, I had people that
bring the pastor to do
I'll bring the pastor to do it.
Wow.
But once it comes to systems, organization, checking books, making sure that everything is in order, making sure that the finances of the fellowship is in order, that was my core.
Wow.
We were getting it done.
Really interesting.
Yeah.
Wow.
Pastor T, I think while listening to Pastor Farkan, I've heard so much his zeal and balancing his zeal with wisdom by setting systems in place, setting things in the right place. So there's one thing that comes with us, the youth, like young guys, young people, where the Bible says that the strength of a young man is the glory of a young man is his strength. And then we tend to forget about wisdom and think that we can triumph on just our strength, our agility. So what is the thin line of balancing your zeal as a young man? Like, you want to be a pastor, or people looking at us now, watching this, they want to go into, and they have not learned the wisdom, because the Bible says Jesus Christ is the wisdom and the power of God. What's the place of wisdom to learn to do this work?
Okay, so Jesus was age 12 when he was first mentioned as doing what is in line with ministry.
Okay.
And at that mention, what was he doing? He was rubbing minds with the wisest set of people as far as that area is concerned. All right. So it's not just speed that matters. It's speed in the right direction. So wisdom sets you on the right path. So a lot of young person, which is another thing we see, one of the challenges we have is that when the young ones get tired of not being given a chance in their being rebellious against those kind of systems, they get to step out and disconnect totally from any source of wisdom from the former generation. No, when I took over pastoral ministry, as in over a branch, one of the things the pastor that handed over to me told me, he said, "Paul, when you stay in this thing long enough, nothing moves you again." And you see, you may have all the fire, all the revelation. It's nothing compared to experience. Because you may have read it in the book. Yeah. Elijah commanded fire until you see fire. Yeah, you can tell other people's story, but there's what experience does for you. Yeah. And many times, one of the first ways to gain the experience is to sit with somebody whose experience is close to you.
Yeah. Yes.
Somebody whose experience is close to you. So I've been privileged to work with my pastor of blessed memory, who there are certain things I saw him do, certain even without saying, I just watched him do it. I was in my 20s, early 20s. So most of the stories you heard was in my early 20s.
Yeah.
It was in my early 20s. So I think I got born again 20, very late. Very late.
But you had to catch up.
But I had to catch up. Yeah. I had to catch up. So in catching up, you will scarcely find me in the company of my peers. Even till date. The people you will find me with are people who are of a generation older than me. Almost always. Why? There's something I need to learn from them. I'm privileged to have a brother like Pastor David Osaka, who is of the other generation. But I go there a lot. I bounce a lot of ideas through him. I am open for conversations like that. Those conversations does not leave your mind thinking normal. It changes you. It changes you. So you on the other side, we have a generation of people who say that generation, they don't know anything.
Yeah.
We know more than them. We have AI. So we can give AI messages.
I hope AI will not replace the Holy Spirit the way
I prayed. So somebody said, this is how you know a Gen Z's project work. It starts by saying, sure, I can help you. Here are 5 ways. So if you see a message that starts with sure. You know it is AI generated. All right, so the work there, the balance for me there is that understanding that there is wisdom in them. Now, wisdom in whether they are sound or not, there's wisdom in them. So imagine when God calls Samuel. Let me end with this. God calls Samuel, and still puts him under Eli. It took Eli instructing Samuel. This is the way. This is God. This is how to respond to him. But you see, what our generation would rather do is, Eli, I've seen all your mess. I've seen all your mess. We can't listen to you. Forgetting that guy may have been called of God. Yeah, he may have missed it somewhere. But hey, it doesn't remove the calling of God on his life. He can tell you how not to.
How not to and how to.
He can tell you how not to end up like him.
Okay. So I want to also weigh into that.
Yes, sir.
Let's look at a child that is born. At what point do we think a child will want to grow out of the wings of the father, the instructions of the father? Because the child does not know anything. Everything the child is learning is from the home.
Yeah.
So someone grows, comes into a church, there's nothing he knows. He's not seeing anything. So, but a child can get to a point where he now says, Daddy, I don't need you again. When he has seen maybe a lacuna, a void. But as long as the father has channeled a path for this child to follow, the child will follow that path. So the thing is this, the seeming rebellion or young people not wanting to listen to the older people Where did that gap come from that they now felt, oh, I can no longer get it from you? Because if we're doing what we were meant to do, no child will come to feel like I can no longer take any instruction from you.
Yes, sir.
It's either what they were giving, they've come to experience that it's not really true, which we don't want to be talking about doctrine today, but so there were doctrinal issues with the instructions that were being fed, and then these guys came and said, no, started questioning things. But beyond that, what I even want to major on is that we had a discipleship gap in the church.
Yeah.
We had a discipleship gap in the church where pastors literally abandoned the work of discipleship and started using the word mentoring.
Yeah.
Yes. So discipleship, as a disciple, you are meant to grow somebody to become like Christ.
Yeah.
There is a model. To become like Christ, we are pushing someone, so you make sure that this person is growing, he's doing all of that, and the person will follow. However, we shift that to mentoring. Become like me.
The difference between mentoring and discipleship.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Discipleship, become like Christ. Mentoring, become like me. So the word mentoring is now used. So in fact, listen to any message now. Pick a message now. You might, and then where someone is meant to be talking about, you will hear the word mentoring so much that you hardly hear the word discipleship. And so when this person gets close to this man of God that is meant to be a mentor and realize that the mentor has his own issues, and even some of the things the mentor is saying, could have come from a point of bias or whatever, the person begins to ask questions. And then after a point, the young people said, we don't want to listen to you any longer because we cannot relate to the things you are saying. It's different. So the church is meant to have a system where you recruit these people. They should pass through it. There's no way they will become disconnected from the old if we had allowed discipleship to continue. And the thing about it is that discipleship, I used to tell my pastors like them, I'll tell them that when you guys became the chief discipleship officer of the church and the chief mentoring officers of the church, where you occupy all the C-suites in the church, then every other person left because there's no way a pastor can successfully disciple everybody in the church.
You can't.
So, but when pastors are wanting, attention to be shifted to them, other members will just come and then they are just there. You created that gap. Everybody was meant to do the work together.
Yeah.
So, what did Paul say to Timothy? The things I have committed to you, commit thou to faithful men who will also. Yeah. So it's meant to be a battle.
That's like 4 generations.
Yes. So that is how it's meant to be. But immediately, everything was like attention to the pastor, such that even when you want to give testimony, it has to be about what pastor said or what pastor did not say about that for you to be able to have access to the pulpit. These are the issues. So that is where this lacuna was created, where you now have young men. However, I want to say it, regardless of whatever any young person will think, see, the principle of scripture can never be broken. A child, even though he's Lord of all, he's a servant until the time appointed. So he has to be under who? Tutors and guides. So regardless of whatever we will think of, we cannot break this principle. So every young person will still need to learn.
Yeah.
Because that's where you're going to get wisdom. Yeah, wisdom comes from God, but you can pick it from people. Honestly, if there's anyone that have mentored me or discipled me or have followed after, it's my father. He's late. But guy, that man, he didn't allow me one bit. I followed him like back. He made sure that I kept following. His frown, is enough for me to,
to arrange yourself.
arrange myself and all of that. So it's necessary. And that's where you begin to pick wisdom from. So we cannot neglect the old. I still listen to all of them. And I don't know whether I'll ever have a life that I will not have a pastor.
No.
I don't think so. No, because you just want to go and you want to disappear into oblivion. So that's my question.
So, all right, sir, Pastor Nte, the thing with what Pastor has said now about church that have failed, that have not, because I can relate. My former church, there was a time there was a time I was not getting what I expect the church should give. And then the set man of God in the congregation, if he does not come to church is, nobody's answering you. You go out and say, praise the Lord, nobody's answering until they hear the car drives in, and then the man of God,
the anointed is in the house.
Hallelujah.
Oh God.
So what are the systems that the church should put in place so that they do not keep having rebellion young persons in the church? What are those things that church should put in place so that we will not keep having the youth are fighting us?
Okay, so understand that ministry is partnership. Ministry is partnership.
It's a rewind.
That's the first thing you really want to hear and understand. Ministry is not a sole proprietorship stuff. It's partnership. So it is when, I like the way Ephesians put it. Permission, let me go scripture. There's no projector around it. All right, but I like the way Ephesians put it. It is when all the joints, all the parts makes it supply. That's when the body grows. So once you have that understanding, that at everybody's level, there's something they have to contribute for the growth of that body.
Yeah.
When you neglect that, someone else has to do 3 people's job, and many times it's the pastor. So imagine, let's even say I as a pastor, because you see, all the ministry gifts supposed to be represented within the body.
In a local assembly.
Supposed to be represented. Such that we've had pastors who are good with the prophetic. In fact, again, it begins with the recruitment process, sir. Begins with the recruitment process. So just because I have a little prayer life, I'm solid, I'm sound. But I have more bent towards healing ministry.
Okay.
But when you see me, you're saying this is a ministry material.
Okay.
I know you make me a pastor. I don't have a pastoral calling. I cannot shepherd people. I cannot disciple like that. But if you bring me to healing, I can do that. Now, also, so there's someone that is an evangelist. He's going out winning souls. Things are happening, and you make him a pastor. If that pastor does not understand quickly and bring an administrator, take your place. Brings a discipler, take your place. He will bring people into the church that he cannot disciple. And so you see them, he's always looking for, bring more. Bring more. And people are asking, this last more you brought. What has happened to them? Who has paid attention? So church becomes like a Ponzi scheme. Bring 3. Where is your own 3? Bring 3. And they bring another 3. And they ask, the last 3 we brought, what has happened? There has to be somebody who is a discipler, who is a co-pastor, who sits. He may not be the front, the set man, but he owns his parts.
Yes.
Healing matters come up, and the evangelist says, I can do it, but there's somebody who has it. So, some of us pastors, privileged to be able to manifest a little bit of the prophetic because of the assignment, because of no one there. But it doesn't mean I work in the prophetic office. A real prophetic person sits down, he's swallowing Gary, and he enters into the spirit and begins to tell you things. I can't do that. Me, I need a lot of worship. A lot of worship atmosphere to stimulate. Like, I didn't say, God, I beg. If you don't give me somebody who suffer.
Like, bring me a minstrel.
Yes.
Exactly. So once an organization understands this, a church understands this, we begin to feed these little ministry expressions, no matter how small. So there are ministries I'm aware of that they do ministry tests. As they are doing their workers, as they are coming in through their discipleship class, what they use as training for new members when they come in. They do ministry tests to know what your natural bent is and how to feed you in that area. Understand this, that when the pastor is feeding people, when the word enters, now, as he's feeding me, the prophetic is manifesting. For you, the apostolic is manifesting. For you, another ministry, the administrative is manifesting. But once the nutrient enters and we are soaked, as we grow, you grow more in this direction, I grow more in this direction. The work of the set man is to make sure that all these parts finds full expression unhindered.
Yes.
Unhindered.
Yes.
So because of let me say it.
Okay.
Because of insecurity many times.
Insecurity
many times of the said person. Oh, this person is going to get more attention than I am. But you see, it's not about attention. It's about the kingdom. It's about the kingdom. Set the systems right. Put it on paper. So that when you take action, you know that these actions are based on this, not based on how it made me feel.
Yeah.
Not based on how it made me feel. It is on paper, and even the board ratifies this. It's not what, it has nothing to do with me. The one that has to do with me, I go back and lick my wounds. If you are getting more popularity than I am, I go back and lick my wounds. I've pastored an assembly like that where when issues of maturity came, there was somebody they had to go and meet, and I respected the man. Because even me too, I had to go there, not nicodemously. I had to go publicly. Oh, guy, I don't know this area. I need wisdom. And he had it. I can't be saying because I am the set man, I am. I have it more than you know. I'm not great in that area. I know my strengths. And when it comes to that, it manifests without even thinking. Without thinking.
Yeah. Thank you.
Set that system. That's
all right.
my thoughts, sir.
Wow. Ministry is partnership.
Yeah.
So it takes 2, 3, 4 to do ministry. So Pastor said it's not mentoring. You are not the goal. Jesus is the goal. Jesus is the goal of the church. All right, sir, Pastor Falcon. Yeah. Pastor mentioned something about insecurity. And I remember the story of David when he killed Goliath. And then Saul came after him. And the rest is history, as we know. How can a young person survive a ministry or a church where the pastor is not allowing people express their giftings?
Use the right word, is insecure. His workplace hazard.
Workplace hazard.
Okay.
Sir, you understand, right?
Yes, and I need to really apply so much wisdom because I know people are hearing me.
Yeah.
There's a way you answer this question, people will just start taking their backs. So I'll say a whole lot of things in a very short time. So the thing is everyone should understand that one day we are all individually going to appear for the judgment seat of Christ.
Yeah.
And you are going to be judged based on what you did versus what you expected to do. And it's not going to be about any man, whether I gave you opportunity or I did not give you opportunity. Yeah. So the first thing is, if you find yourself in a ministry and you are very sure that this is your alignment, this is where you are meant to go to.
Okay.
And like we are talking about youthful age and time is passing by. Have a real conversation with your pastor. Don't be quiet about it. Have a real conversation
with your pastor.
Do it. Respect him, honor him, but be real.
Yeah.
If you are sure of your convictions. See, I have a lot of stories. While growing up, then in secondary school days, a lot of my friends started hearing the call. So I know this can go international, but I want to use one in the word. We went on here, good. So at the point they were like, are you not getting the call? But thank God that at 15, I knew that mine was not going to be this preaching pastoral Sunday thing. As flamboyant as it was. But I have done many things and I've joined my church here in Uyo and all of that. And honestly, I came face to face with that decision. Either to go and do pastoral stuff completely or stay and do my administrative work. I stood my ground.
Yeah.
I had an honest conversation with my pastor, which is what I'm saying everyone should do.
Sure.
And I said, sir, this is my alignment and I really want to stay. Several months later, my pastor confessed. He said, this man, when you put him where he belongs, you will see how he can work. Which is true. So I will say, have that honest conversation with him. And then see how things pan out. But after a while, if he doesn't still, you're not getting the required result or whatever you want, someone is not opening up the door of ministry to you, like what happened to Paul and Barnabas.
Yeah.
If the apostles, did not allow them to go, we don't know what would have happened. So, but I will say respectfully, if you can find a way to fulfill that ministry outside of the church that you are in, respectfully, go there do that without dishonoring the man.
Yeah.
So you can do all the things you need to do as a young person without dishonoring the man. And never you do that. Because the truth is no matter what you think you know, as a young person, oh God, you'll be shocked out there. So I also want to quickly mention patience. You will need patience to see. Yeah, I know time is of essence, but can you apply some patience? Hear him. So have that discussion, hear him out, and then don't be a rebel. You get the point.
Yes, sir.
But be patient. But once you are very sure, you think you are sure that, then have that discussion with him. I don't think there's any pastor that is going to stop anyone from going to fulfill his assignments if the person believes he's very sure. But do it in a very good way. And then be submissive too. I think what the young people should do, or what I will tell pastors is, let's allow the young people thrive, but they shouldn't thrive in isolation. Yes, they shouldn't thrive in isolation.
Be guided.
Yes, that's what every young person needs. They need to be guided, because the pastor himself that is in the older generation, he has the wisdom, he has the experience. He was talking about experience.
Yeah.
Yes, he has seen a lot of things, and all of that. So you guide these young ones. So I think I'll just want to leave it there.
So let's continue from there. From the part of
what do you do when you face this kind of resistance?
Yes.
For me, I would throw the part of fine. I like the conversation, very honest conversation with your pastor. That's on the grounds that your pastor is someone you can have those conversations with. All right, because
you cannot have. Yeah, the pastor. So
I'm not. Well, it is advice, because it's same. One of the issues I'm afraid of is you don't know what one mistake you've idolized, that it becomes a multi-generational disaster, not just one generation. These are my pastor raised me. These are my pastor did not listen to anything, so nobody listened to anything. All right, so that's why I'm always very careful. Okay, so that's on a lighter note, please. Don't rebel. Okay, so have that conversation with your pastor. Of course, there will be those that understand. There will be those who do not understand, who have already wired you into the line of what they see, what they expect. In fact, there are those who just believe you are just talking. Okay, but have that conversation. You want to know what this person is thinking of when it has to do with you. Because you see, there are situations where pastors have thought of, okay, this person, like, my pastor had such a thought about me, but it was never mentioned. It was years later when I was talking with my pastor, his wife, and he said, Pastor mentioned this thing to me years ago that you'll be a pastor in this ministry. And I'm like, he never told me. He never told me. All right, so imagine if at some point I had maybe a premonition that I will be doing this. And then I feel like there's nothing coming from that direction. And then I walk off. I walk away. Whereas he's just watching, I'm grooming you. There are certain attributes I want to see. There are certain characters I want to see. And so that's why I also would sometimes encourage, with wisdom, because I know it's not all the time, but with wisdom, our fathers, pastors, should be able to tell somebody, these are the things I really want you to work on. I agree. So sometimes somebody can be put through a process and you're working. I'm not saying you should work on yourself because of ministry. Work on yourself for yourself. But you should be able to know you need to work on this. Currently a young man I'm actually handling like that. Great ministry guy. But there are certain traits I've seen. So when his pastor tried to call him off on something, I could see the same thing his pastor is seeing. And then an issue blew up recently and it came to my table. I had to call him, see where your ministry is going. See where your light is going. See the tendency. But you see the small things that can bring down this ministry. See how big it can be. See how big it can be. And you have this one. You have this one. You have this one. It gives you room to go back and deal with this. If not, this thing must manifest. This thing God has put on your head must manifest. And if you have not dealt with it, as you are growing, this thing is growing. And it will deal with you. So sometimes, one of the things that motivates people to either wait, to either work on themselves, is when they have a picture of what is seen of them. A picture of what you've seen of them. Oh, I see you here. Even though sometimes some of us pastors can see something you have not seen, you will never see. But at least there's a hand of God upon your life. I may not know the full dimension, But there's a hand of God on your life, and it's for greatness. God does not call anybody to small things. So I would encourage you to have that conversation with your pastor respectfully. And if your pastor does not give that room, sometimes, this is what I also advise, you can create that result you are looking for without breaking the church. Who says, there was a period, when I was here in New York, there was a period that for months, I think probably like 6 months, but I was not sitting on the pulpit. I was not doing any pulpit ministry in terms of prayer, nothing. But you cannot deny the impact I was making in people's life. You couldn't, as in far beyond my own units. I was sitting with them at home, we were discussing scriptures and we were praying, we were doing a whole lot of things. I could choose to do that within the ministry without turning the people's heart away from the set man. I only point them to the word of God without trying to create a division.
Without trying to start a church.
Of course. And I can also do it outside the church. I can also have people outside that division that I am also blessing their lives. The wisdom of God is flowing through my life in that direction. I am sharing with people. I am meeting with young ministers. I am meeting with people who also share the same faith outside there. And we are growing together without breaking church. Sometimes your pastor gets to see from outside that the hand of God is manifesting in your life outside and says, instead of me to lose this young man, let me give him space inside. Yeah. I had young men like that under me who were ministering outside, and they will come and I have ministry, so please. Interestingly, at a period where I wasn't taking it, I was not ordering invites. And whenever they told me, I told them, the Lord go with you. Sometimes just make sure your work here does not suffer. Set the system, make sure nothing suffers, give me a report. And they go and minister and come back. How many times they go and say, my pastor, they mention my name. And then if you see me come back, you don't even know I am his pastor. And for me, the joy is that this young man, from what he has been fed, he is growing. He is growing. And so for such a person, I now sit down and say, okay, let him not share pulpit here, let him not climb the pulpit so that he will not take the... For what now? If he goes to any of those churches, they will give him pastor immediately. So what's the wisdom? Oh, I've seen that the hand of God is upon his life. I can't kill it, sir.
Okay, let me also just add something else.
Okay.
I think every believer, every child of God should not think that the end is pastoring.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
The end for every one of us is not pastoring.
It's not pastoring.
That is, it's not that pulpit pastoring I talked about in that example I gave.
Yeah.
It can't be. Yeah. So if going back to what Pastor Paul had said earlier, every joint.
Yeah.
If we can have a system in our church where every joint can supply. Yes. You know, the last time I was here on this podcast, I said something that I'm beginning to doubt, what we call the fivefold ministry, because we have more gifts than the five. So there are many other ones. So a local church, I believe, has everything that is needed for that church to grow. That is it. So if we have that system where everyone does that part, now whoever is the one bringing out the word of God on Sunday is just doing his own part.
Yes, that's partnership.
Yes, he's just doing his own part. You know, so that person can be maybe the chief administrative officer of the church. You know, I'm using word because it aligns with, you know, my calling. So no, we have every other person doing something. So pulpit must not be the core. We are not trying to get everyone there. And that is also the reason why I can lead someone to the Lord in a particular church that I am in. Okay. And the person can grow to become a pastor while I'm still heading something else. It shouldn't be a problem. Not an issue. It shouldn't be. As long as I know that I am doing what God called me to do. Yeah. And then that could be his own alignment. So he's growing there. He's going in that area. So first of all, we should not always think that is it. And even if you think maybe you have a gift of a pastor, apostle, evangelist, pastor, prophet, teacher, and all of that, let's tell ourselves, if you read, I think, Romans 12, there are diversities of gifts. And there are differences in administration. It means there's an extent to which everyone, as in God did not give every one of us the same finishing line. Yes. Yeah. We don't all have the same finishing line. So two evangelists in the same church does not mean that every one of them must preach in Tokyo. Yeah. That until you get to Tokyo and evangelize Tokyo or evangelize Japan, you have not done your work. My own evangelists might just be to evangelize all the villages around me. That could just be where the extent to where my ministry is going to end. And then the other person can take it further, and all of that, because there are diversities, but it's the same Lord.
Yeah.
It's the same Lord. So it is when we all think that, there's one big something somewhere there. Remember I said that we are going to be judged based on what we did versus what we were expected to do.
Yeah.
So I think what every young man should be asking is, what am I expected to do? So that you now know. That will now make us to calm down with all of this rush and age and all of that, that you want to meet up somewhere. No, let's all calm down. As long as you are adding to the body, as long as you are fitting, you could be the eye, the other one could be the ear, the other one is the leg, the other one is the nose. And we functioning, the church as a system should get everyone to function.
Yeah.
And if that happens, I'm sure we will all relax. All of that.
Mind our business.
Yes, we'll relax, do what we need to do, get people to the kingdom, go into the field, into the corporate world, and then turn all of those places into a mission field. Everything must not happen on the pulpit. In fact, what even happens on the pulpit? Are we really even discipling people from there?
No, we don't.
When the people we need to bring, they are all in the banks, in the market and all of that. So if we all calm down with these things, I'm sure we can get a whole lot, and we will not have that frenzy. You will even notice whether your pastor is insecure or not. If everyone is doing what they are meant to do, and then you also take it outside, and then you can achieve a whole lot.
All right, sir. Pastor Afakal, please let me stay with you. We have. So in these days, we have many people that when the young guy or the young ministers messes up or make mistakes, it's or even the social media wants the privilege of the church making mistake, and then it's aired on air and everyone blasts this. So what are the preferred measures to handle? Because sometimes these young guys will always make mistakes, and that's why we need guidance. So how do the set men of God over them handle them when they see that they've made mistake or they have done some errors?
Is it just the young guys that make mistakes? I've not even seen the young. I think the young people are even covered. But the reason why I subscribe to anybody that wants to do a preaching ministry to be under a church is for what you are even talking about, so that you can make mistakes and you are covered.
You're covered, yeah.
Because if you are under a big ministry and then you are sent maybe to go and start a branch work, oh God, that's the best thing that has happened to you. You need that experience. You can make, especially when you start early. In fact, our conversation was that those people don't start early.
Yeah.
So if a pastor picks you at 19, 20, 23 and says, go and start a branch work, honestly, that's like the best thing that has happened to you. So if you make mistakes, that ministry will shield you. Who is going to come after you? You are a branch pastor in one church somewhere there. We will even notice. It is if your senior pastor, if he's the one that makes the mistake, that's when everybody will come after. So the church already has a security measure to protect you. But if you didn't go through that system and then you just, zoom out, and because you had one revelation of Elijah, the teach by that just showed up. These social media guys that are trying to get more likes so that they monetize their accounts, they will use you well. They will use you very well. And you know what? God will still be God. If you are saying, God, why are they doing me like this? You will say, I was still here when my son was being killed on the cross and they were dropping stones on him, because maybe you lack some wisdom to know some certain things. And that will also be what our fathers are also trying to do.
Okay.
Putting you through training, trying to help your lifestyle and character, so that it can be formed. However, I still say that one shouldn't be unnecessarily long. It shouldn't be something that gets to a point where someone now feels like maybe you don't even want me to, progress and to go do something. So, because sometimes there's always a part of learning on the job. If you go and start ministry at the age of 50, you still have to learn.
Yeah.
Even if
a lot to learn.
Even if you are working with your pastor, you were following for every ministration he went for. Even if you were sleeping with him on the same bed. Once they say you are now the pastor of this congregation, you are the one to preach every Sunday. One of the things these people do that I don't ever want to do is to be the one that will always be preaching on a Sunday morning. You know what that means? To sit down and prepare message, and it has to be different every Sunday. Even if you are running a series, you can't be preaching what you preached last Sunday now.
And it needs to be true.
And it has to be the word in season.
Yeah.
If not, it's not going to build anybody.
Motivational.
Yeah. So that you know that you have a lot of things to learn. Okay, you have a church where people come in. How do you handle, a man that is living with a woman that is not his wife? You didn't see that all throughout the time you were with your pastor. Yeah. Maybe because he never shared those kind of stories with you. You come to start church and then you face to face with, police arresting a member in church. Many, many things that happens with different people that are coming. My pastor, Pastor Ezekiel, will always say that we are not all trained by the same father. So you are going to inherit all of those things. You will have to learn ministry.
Wow.
It goes back to the fact that we have to start on time, but start guided. Start guided. Be under a ministry. I like that model a whole lot. Be under pastor some branches, and most so too. I think I'm not also really keen on everybody going to go and start their own Pentecostal ministry. Seriously, you can stay under a ministry and grow. Ministry should grow both vertically and horizontally. One day I shared it in God's house, that we cannot unseat the senior pastor. So we can begin to grow horizontally. Once you have become head of unit, this one, GC coordinator, whatever, you become a minister, then you become a pastor. You become an associate pastor. You become all of that. But you are not going to be senior pastor.
So you can't.
Because there's only one person that is going to be that. So at that point, what happens? You begin to grow horizontally. So you can stay in a ministry till you leave this earth, serving under that ministry, but doing tremendous things. I also believe in that. Yeah. But if you have to also go out and start your own work, which is what I don't even understand that, but that is a word that is using. If you have to go and start your own work.
I think you've not been working.
You have to go and start your own work. It's still good not to be independent. Yeah.
So, Pastor Paul, do you think we have faults, and is it as a result of rebellion, young people start their own work?
Well, many times when somebody does not see a future within a ministry,
when shall I be able to provide for
when will I provide for my family? When will I, like what he has said about growing vertically. You look at it and say, okay, all the perks of this ministry lies with the GO, in quote. For me, let me use that word, lies with the GO. For me, that is an associate pastor at this level. Nothing comes to me at this level. So I've got to, is this, you begin to say like Jacob will say, where will I have my own? Is this how I raise my family? This is some of them. Then also ministry expression, sir. Ministry expression. So let's say the set person over your ministry happens to be more of a teacher, and he is organizing more of teaching conferences. So, and then you are the prophetic.
Yeah.
And he enter, let me borrow our Ibibio Palace again. I will say, is anybody seeing things? Can somebody say? So you had more of the prophetic soul. Now, which is one of the malady we have had in the body of Christ. Because you have not been given room to manifest your prophetic ministry here. And your prophetic ministry is gathering a following. You pull off, start out a ministry based on just prophetic.
And do only prophetic meetings. Because that's what you have learned over the years.
That's what we've had. And so there's no administrative, there's no teaching, there's no evangelism, because prophetic ministry will gather people. Once you prophesy, people will show up. But you notice that people that hang around that's fair only come for receive this, but they don't grow. Character-wise, they are not formed. Except you had a little touch of this other one. Or you have somebody within your team who is handling this other part that you don't have graces for. So when people see that, ministry projection is high here, we are projecting the pastoral ministry here, and then may have a calling of God too in my life, and I want to manifest it. And if you don't, okay, so I'll go out somewhere and start off my own prophetic ministry. And then, so this is another standalone ministry. So the hand moves out of the body to start doing what the whole body is supposed to do. The leg moves out of the body to start doing what the whole body should do, instead of everybody coming together to find a future and a hope within that place.
Is there any possibility of having a uniformed church without a name?
Well, like you said, it's in your imagination. The thing about it is this. I always say that the local church is God's system for discipleship. Yeah. The local church is God's system for discipleship. Yes. So if we were to go outside, evangelize, we need to bring those people in somewhere to a particular place. Okay. And then let's give it. So we've had the churches that we call the Orthodox churches. Mm-hmm. They still have a name different from any other one, you know. And then there's this rise of the charismatic ministry, where we also derive the Pentecostal ministries from, you know. Just that these ones, they are very easy to start. You know, they are like small-scale businesses in Nigeria, where you register. They're like POS. You know, you can just start and then you register immediately and you are up and down. So we will not. So it's not like a uniform church. My pastor in Lagos, he will always say, you know, we can wear the same uniform, but we are not. But we are not united. Yeah. So uniformity is not unity. You get. So we may not have, and I'm not even thinking that we should have. Yes, I'm not even thinking that all the churches should come together under one umbrella and all of that. We'll create so much chaos. I'm saying that in that little microcosm where you are, even if it's a church of 10 people, trust me, in that church, you have a pastor, you have an evangelist, you have an apostle, you have a teacher, you have someone with a gift of mercy, you have someone with a gift of help, you have someone with a gift of administration. The only thing is that the gift may not be well developed. For example,
feed them.
Yes. For example, my 2-year-old daughter is a full-grown human being. It's just that she may not be able to carry 10 cake of water right now, 10 liters of water right now. But that doesn't mean that she's not a full-grown human being. So what I need to do is to keep feeding her, and then after a while, she'll begin to express whatever she has with. So I say this: we don't always have to go. We eat from our house. It's once in a while, you know, that we go maybe out to go and, you know, eat from outside. One of the pastors that came for one of our conventions said that Christmas rice does not grow anybody. It is the one you eat in the morning, in the afternoon, and in the night, you know, that grows. So what a pastor does is to keep feeding. So the Bible study we have on Tuesdays, you know, the deliverance service you have on Fridays, the Sunday service you have that 30 minutes, that's Sunday school, is what grows everyone. You know that all of this, so even if it is 10, we all have everything that we need. Then you begin to see that this one can pray a little more. Give him the opportunity to lead prayers. This one can share word. This one. In fact, something happened to me in my 4th year. I went for IT. And there was this church we were attending. And so I was hardly going for Bible studies. Then one day, I said, let me just attend their Bible studies. And I went there. And then they were teaching. The pastor was teaching. As in, it was time for questions. People asked questions. And I just raised up my hand to give a contribution. That is what sold me out. Immediately after, just that little contribution to the question that was asked, I said, I've been looking for a teacher all this while, and you are here. That was how I took the Bible study. I was now the one handling Bible studies in that church till I finished IT. It was in Port Harcourt. So that is a pastor that understands that I don't have this grace.
And there's somebody
and then there's someone that has it, so you give it out. So no matter how small it is, you feed it and make sure that you give the person the opportunity, the person will grow. If we have a church like that, honestly, all of these things that we are seeing will not happen.
Wow. Thank you very much, our amazing audience, for joining us in this segment of Quest to Know. Don't forget, our topic is youthful zeal or inexperienced hands, the minister's dilemma. What we have youths today, young people today fighting our fathers. I should be ordained. I should be ordained. This give me a pastor. So this is what we're talking about. So please, if you think there is any area that we've not touched, lighted, or we've not talked about, join the comment section and type it, and then we will respond to your comments. Thank you very much. As we bring this to a wrap, let me ask our amazing guests to give us 1 minute overview of Pastor. Let me start with you. What is the overview you like our audience to live with pertaining to this topic that we have today?
All right. So regarding the particular topic we've touched today, yes, I want to say this, that your calling is genuine. Your calling is valued. If God did not need what you carry. He wouldn't have put it in you. Howbeit, calling and graces have timings. They have principles. They have dynamics. Let me say this. If I were to plant 4 different crops in this space, my work is to keep feeding that space. I keep pouring my manure, water, expose all of them to sunlight. Timing will differ. One crop may come out earlier, another crop may come out later, and the rest. But it doesn't remove the fact that all of them are growing. So stay where you are fed. Stay where what you carry will find room for expression. And more than that, understand timing. Don't try to manifest before your time. Before your time, you will be cut off. Before your time, you will be unprepared. You will be undone. Imagine eating beans when you've just put it 10 minutes on fire. It will not give you the value you expect. So I always say that. And then disregarding the old does not necessarily make the new stronger or better. When I was living where I was, the ministry I've been with for several years, where I was fed and raised, one of the counsel I got, which has stuck, he said, don't denigrate what you receive there. What you receive there is what gave foundation for what you are seeing that you're pursuing now. So if you denigrate that, it's like removing the foundation from under your leg. And you will never do that. You will never go far doing that. Whatever you do, honor the grace upon which you stood to see what you are seeing today. It has a place in where God is taking you to.
Thank you very much, Pastor Paul. All right, Pastor Afaka.
Okay, what my friend Pastor Paul has shared is very, very cogent. So, but me, I would like to also appeal to our fathers. I really want to appeal to you. Check out the time you started ministry. I don't want, if I mention names here, which I'm compelled to.
Yes, sir.
Is it Pastor Poju? I think from his days in the university, he just came out and started maybe at 23, I'm not sure, but thereabout.
Yes.
Started the Covenant Nation, Bishop Oyedepo, and all of these people, they started when they were young, very, very small. Some of them started as teenagers, and you can see the amazing work that they are doing. Was it last year? A pastor was celebrating 50 years birthday and 25 years in ministry. And I said it on the same podcast. It means he was ordained at 25. And the question I ask is, how many people in your church at 25 have you ordained? Someone gave you that, that opportunity to grow, to learn. So we have to do that. A pastor preached in our first year convention, and I was just tracking his age. He was 35 then. He already had an amazing church in this Uyo, and he preached in our first year convention. This year, we were doing 19 years, and he preached also. He's 53. And I asked myself, how many people at 35 can mount this prostrum in our church right now to preach? So you see, like, we just it looks as if it's still the old that we are having.
Yeah.
So please, pastors, we will need to do something. Check your group of leaders and ask yourself, amongst your core, how many people are in their 20s? Amongst the people that are taking vital decisions in your ministry, in your church right now. But ask yourself, when did you start taking vital decisions in the church you were before you founded the one that you are? At what age? We will need to go back because there is a serious gap. Yes. So please, I want to say, let's look at these two. While you are trying to make sure that the young people have grown to a point, but let's not make it everlasting. Let's not make it everlasting. I'll end by giving a story I heard. A man called Apostle Emmanuel Irin. Yes, the pastor of Celebration Church.
Yeah.
We see he's a very young person.
Yes, sir.
But 10 years ago, I heard this video from one of the person I'm talking about. So 10 years ago, he gathered a group of young people from the age of 19 to 23. And then he was impacting them every day, according to that story. He kept impacting them and then teaching them, mentoring them, discipling them, telling them a lot of things to do. 10 years after, those guys have moved out into different areas. And you know what they did? They started celebration churches everywhere. So that is why celebration churches in almost every, I think it's in about 5 continents of the world right now.
Yes, sir.
And spreading, and it's still spreading. And you see the man in charge, he looks very, very, very young,
yes, sir.
and all of that. So, and the guy that was making this statement, he's currently he's 10 years ago, he was 19. As at that time. So 10 years now is how many years? 29. And he's pastoring a church of 1,000. He himself, raised at 19. Today, he's pastoring a church of 1,000, not in Nigeria. Because it's easy to pastor a church of 1,000 in Nigeria. So you can see, someone that saw the future and decided to invest in young people and then give them the opportunity. That is the model I think every pastor should, imbibe. Don't be afraid. These guys will make mistakes. You too, you made mistake.
Yeah.
So allow them and correct them and allow them to grow. And then for you, young person, you will need patience. Yes, you will need patience. So that's my view. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much, amazing guests, for joining us in today's podcast. And I trust that you've learned so much from our two wise, experienced and resourceful guests in the house today. Don't forget a lot of things we have said today. Be guided as a pastor. There's what was spoken for the pastor, our fathers, and there's what is spoken for us, the young and people that want to enter into ministry in due time. Please know your place, stay patient, know your timing, be fed, and please, above all, let the young guys thrive and be guided. And that is what we have learned so much here today on Question No Podcast. Don't forget, on Question No Podcast, we question the norm and we challenge the status quo. So we'll say bye for now.